Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Um, Today we've got something pretty unusual, I'd say.
Oh.
It's a chapter from a book, or at least that's what it looks like. The file name is 009 Hyperspace
Hmm.
6574.pdf.
Okay.
And get this, it starts with a top secret classification.
Oh.
I know, right? Super intriguing.
It is.
But instead of, like trying to uncover some government secrets,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to look at how this chapter kind of reflects a certain online subculture,
Interesting.
their way of thinking.
Like a digital anthropology almost.
Exactly. So instead of studying ancient cultures, we're looking at,
Artifacts.
artifacts of the internet.
Internet age. Yeah.
And this chapter is a perfect example. It's got this weird mix of conspiracy theories,
Right.
pop culture references, even some philosophical stuff,
Oh, wow.
all written in this stream of consciousness style you see online a lot.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
The author just took everything in their brain and just poured it onto the page.
Yeah.
But even with all of that chaos, there are these hints of something deeper. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a need for meaning
Sure.
and connection in a world that's so driven by tech as online stuff.
It's very relatable, I think, for a lot of people.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to try to unpack today.
Okay. So, where do we begin with this chapter?
Well, it starts off with a pretty wild claim right off the bat.
Okay.
It goes right into this reptilian conspiracy theory.
Oh, boy.
But this one focuses on Michelle Obama.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the way the author describes it is really interesting.
So.
They paint this whole picture where the reptilians are both trying to help and harm humanity at the same time.
So they're both good and bad.
Yeah, it's like they can't decide whether to fully believe it or not.
Right.
And that's something we see a lot in this chapter.
What do you mean?
The author mixes real people, like Nelson Mandela,
Mm-hmm.
with these crazy conspiracy theories and internet slang.
Yeah.
Like they're making their own mythology or something.
Like a collage of different realities.
Yeah, exactly. And then just when you think you're starting to get it,
Mm-hmm.
the chapter takes a hard left turn into Hulk Hogan fan fiction.
Wait, what?
Yeah, out of nowhere, we're in this over-the-top wrestling fantasy
Wow.
where Hulk Hogan's facing off against Nick Denton in a Yapapai strap match.
A Yapapai strap match. Never heard of that one.
Me neither. It's totally bizarre, but it also kind of makes you want to keep reading.
It is a pretty sudden shift in tone.
Yeah, it's jarring, but it's also interesting.
I can see that.
Like, the author's meeting with our expectations.
Uh-huh.
Taking something serious and then throwing in this absurd humor.
I wonder if they're trying to tell us not to take it too seriously.
Yeah, like a wink to the audience.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm in on the joke too.
Right, and I think that irony is really important for understanding this whole chapter.
I see what you mean.
It's not about blindly believing these conspiracy theories
Right.
or getting lost in these fantasies. It's about using them to deal with the world,
Okay.
like a way to process how complex and weird everything is.
Especially online.
For sure. It's like a coping mechanism for all the information overload we face online.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
And then, just as we're getting used to this mix of conspiracies and wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
the chapter throws us another curveball.
What now?
It goes into a deep dive on hyperspace.
Hyperspace. Like the sci-fi concept.
Yeah, but not just any hyperspace. The author wants us to think about it in a non-binary, trans-friendly, pro-Islamic way.
Whoa, that's a mouthful.
I know, right?
And they're critiquing the more traditional white-dominated definition.
Exactly. It's like they're trying to reclaim this concept and make it fit their own views.
Interesting. So they're bringing identity politics into hyperspace?
It seems that way. They even try to connect it to quantum mechanics somehow.
Quantum mechanics, how does that even fit in?
I'm not sure. It seems like a bit of a stretch.
Mm-hmm.
But it shows how they're trying to use science to justify their own unique perspective.
Okay, so we've got reptilians, Hulk Hogan, and now quantum hyperspace. This is getting pretty wild.
I know, right? But it gets even weirder. The author then drops this bombshell. I am trans-ayylmao.
Trans-ayylmao. What does that even mean?
It's like they're mixing their own gender identity with this internet meme about aliens.
So it's like a fusion of online and offline identity.
Yeah, it's like the internet has become a space where people can experiment with different identities and explore different sides of themselves.
And the author is using this trans-ayylmao persona to express their own sense of otherness.
Exactly. It's like they're saying, I don't fit into the traditional boxes, so I'm going to create my own.
And that ties back to their critique of the white-dominated hyperspace, right? They're looking for a way to break free from those limitations.
Exactly. It's all about transcending the boundaries of traditional categories and embracing a more fluid understanding of identity.
This is fascinating stuff. I'm really curious to see where this chapter goes from here.
Me too. It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion, and each layer reveals something even more strange and intriguing.
Let's keep digging and see what other surprises this chapter has in store for us.
Sounds good to me. So this whole idea of like, going beyond what humans can do,
Yeah.
it seems like that's a big part of why the author's so interested in this ayylmao thing.
Right, the alien from the meme.
Yeah, exactly. But they go way beyond just the meme. They make this whole character out of it.
Like a kind of ideal being almost.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
What kind of characteristics do they give it, though?
Well, they describe them as like sexless and gangly with these huge heads and like almost no features on their faces.
So basically a big brain on a skinny body.
Pretty much. They also communicate telepathically, so they don't need language at all.
Whoa, that's wild. So they're just pure intellect. No emotions or like social stuff to get in the way.
That seems to be what the author's going for. They see them as driven only by this desire for knowledge, you know?
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
And they're totally free from all the limitations of being human.
Exactly. All the anxieties and the physical stuff, too.
Like they're taking all these things humans want.
Like transcendence and freedom.
Yeah, and projecting it onto this alien.
Makes sense. And then there's that whole thing about identifying with them, too.
Yeah. The author keeps saying, I am trans-ayylmao.
Right, which is super interesting. It's like they want to escape from being human altogether.
It makes you think about why people are so into aliens,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, is it just because they're mysterious and different, or is it something deeper, like wanting a different way to exist?
I think it's probably both. There's definitely that fascination with the unknown, but I also think aliens can represent something we want for ourselves.
Like a blank canvas we can put our own hopes and fears onto,
Exactly, like a mirror reflecting back at us.
showing us what we're worried about being human.
Yeah, and for this author, the ayylmao seems to be a way to explore those anxieties.
About identity and communication, all the limits of being human.
Exactly. And they do it through this crazy mix of internet slang and conspiracy theories and philosophy.
Which brings us back to the question we started with. What does this chapter tell us about how people use information online these days?
It's like we're watching these different ways of thinking clash,
Right, the logical side of philosophy, and then this chaotic internet language full of memes.
And the author is trying to find their own way through it all.
To make some kind of meaning out of all this information overload.
Yeah, it's like they're building their own personal mythology.
Using bits and pieces of pop culture and conspiracy theories and all that.
And in a way that reflects what a lot of people are doing online now.
Blending fact and fiction, using absurdity and irony to cope with the world.
So this chapter isn't just some random weird thing.
It's more like a snapshot of how we're all trying to make sense of things now.
It makes us question what we think we know about knowledge and identity and even reality itself.
Speaking of questioning things, where did that Hulk Hogan fanfiction come from?
I know, right? It just appears out of nowhere.
Totally breaks the flow of the whole alien discussion.
Like the author's saying, hey, don't get too serious here.
Even I don't take this too seriously.
There's that self-awareness there, acknowledging how ridiculous it all is.
But it's also kind of genius how they mix it all together.
The Hulkster Nick Denton, a Yapapee strap match. It's like a fever dream of internet culture.
It shows how these online spaces can spark creativity.
Yeah, you get these unexpected combinations of ideas that you wouldn't find anywhere else.
Like the internet is this giant playground where anything goes.
And this chapter is a perfect example of that. It's a wild ride through this strange world online.
Where there are no rules and anything can happen.
And then just when you think it can't get any weirder,
What happens?
the chapter throws in this totally random thing about Nelson Mandela.
Mandela, what does he have to do with all of this?
So apparently he steals a hat.
He steals a hat.
Yeah, so he can go to a bee convention.
A bee convention.
Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
But it just fits so perfectly with everything else.
I guess you're right. It's like the author's just embracing how strange it all is.
Yeah, like saying, I know this is weird, but I'm gonna roll with it.
It's kind of refreshing in a way.
It reminds us that the internet's not just about information,
Yeah, it's a place to be creative and just play around with ideas.
And this chapter is a perfect example of that. It's like a tour through this weird and wonderful online world.
So where does this all leave us? What did we learn from this deep dive into 009 Hyperspace 6574.pdf?
I think the biggest takeaway is that the internet has changed how we see the world.
Yeah, we're not just getting information from the same old sources anymore.
Right, we're bombarded with all these different ideas and stories from everywhere online.
And we have to figure out how to deal with that.
Exactly. We have to learn how to filter all that information and decide what to believe.
It's like we're all becoming anthropologists studying this new digital culture.
And this chapter is like a guidebook to that culture.
It's telling us to embrace the weirdness and the irony and not take it all so seriously.
Because maybe that's where we'll find some real insights.
About ourselves and the world around us.
So next time you're scrolling through your social media or going down some internet rabbit hole,
Don't think of it as wasting time.
yeah, you're actually exploring this huge cultural landscape that's changing how we think.
And who knows, maybe you'll find your own 009 Hyperspace 6574.pdf out there.
Some strange and wonderful thing that makes you see the world in a new way.
That's the beauty of the internet, I
It's
guess.
full of surprises.